if you go in that particular direction, north or south, I don't remember, just to the left, the Cupertino side are about 50 to 60% higher than the values in the Sunnyvale area. I said, why? Is there infrastructure difference? No. Identical infrastructure. Location is the same except that this in this county, that's another county. The road is there in between. Same size. The difference is the school district of Cupertino. Cupertino has an excellent school district and the quality of public schools is much better. And therefore there's greater demand for these houses here. Because unless you're a taxpayer in this county or in the school district, you can't send your kids to public schools there. And the difference is $300,000 in that Sunnyvale area, for the same size, $500,000 in Cupertino. If we bring accountability to that level, if we create independent authorities to monitor with ability the quality of schooling, and if the society also is capable of voting with its feet on the basis of the quality of schooling, that is when we can say with some reasonable degree of certainty we have arrived. Our school education is of reasonable quality. But despite having these systems, please remember, in the United States and many other countries, the quality of school education is always a big debate. There are huge problems anywhere in the world because by definition learning is a very boring, tedious thing. We all pretend that we want to learn. It's not true. We hate to learn. I certainly can tell you for myself. It's very difficult to learn. That's why Thomas Edison said there is no expedient to which a man will not resort to avoid the labor of thinking. Anything is okay, but thinking, my God, learning, actually applying the mind, no chance. It's a very difficult task. We think it's very easy because some of us have been lucky. Learning is an incredibly painful task. The challenge is how do you make it attractive enough, minimize the pain. There's always something more attractive, more fun, more global, anything other than learning out there. Whatever your economic or social status, whatever the level of learning from a university to a primary school, doesn't matter what it is. Unless we invest the greatest energies and resources and talents into this sector of preparing our kids, irrespective of the extent of the birth, for a future, helping them fulfill their potential, we would be an extremely poor country with high limits of prosperity. Right now, that's what we are. We could be a reasonably prosperous country in which most of the children have fulfilled their potential. But as of now, we have not shown the capacity to build institutions or the imagination to actually look at these problems and innovate solutions. So what I ask of all of you is, while our money is needed, much more than money, our attention is needed. Your money and my money can never match the public money. The government is spending quite substantial sums. They're wholly inadequate for education, but they're not insubstantial nevertheless. The challenge is how do you make this money like that? In this city, in the name of Satta Jayaprakash, they're spending about 800 rupees per square foot for construction. For the ramshackle, ordinary government school buildings, 800 rupees per square foot is not chicken feed. I'm not talking about buying a flat. I'm talking of actual construction cost. Because even in that, people want to make money through contracts. Therefore, for the public official or the politician, Satta Jayaprakash is a good source of making money. In this state, the lowly official, if you remember, I forget the name also, Sarsa Devi or somebody, made tens of crores of rupees in Satta Jayaprakash by defrauding the public exchequer. And we realized that, I insisted that in the Lok Satta bill you must have a mechanism not only to deal with the higher officials, but also with lower officials if the quantum of corruption goes beyond a certain level. Obviously, you can't put under a Lok Satta or Lok Ayukt by every single public servant, that would be silly. But there are huge monies right now, even by lower officials in some of these programs. Education is no exception. We have a lot to do. We don't have much time to do that. And if you don't do it in the next few years, I think our hopes of matching China and others and becoming a global giant, we can kiss them goodbye. Thank you.
so that we can improve situation in terms of to look at the children in government schools, rural schools, their self-esteem is very low. Some of them may be having self-confidence, but self-esteem is very important, that is very, very low. So what according to you we can do one or two actionable, doable things so that we can go and improve the situation?
Obviously, there is no one thing that is the right thing. I can only suggest a few things casually in offhand. Instead of merely giving money, I would appeal to you to adopt a few schools. Give some time, not obviously a normal amount of time which conflicts with your own professional obligations, but some amount of time in a structured manner so that you mentor that institution and you follow it up. And over time, initially you see lots of problems. You'll see hell, you'll see that the efforts versus the outcomes, you see total disproportionality. But as you persevere, if you do it skillfully, and obviously people like you do it skillfully, you will see that A, lot of knowledge will be gained, and B, you can actually make an institutional difference. Merely throwing money at the problem will not solve it. The second is, take one segment, like for instance, if teacher training is what appeals to you, I would be delighted if you could partner with some organizations which already have some experience, even if rival organizations like Wipro, I mean business-wise rivalry, because they have expertise in this area, and see what are the things you could do and create a small wing here, and then sit with the city government or the local government here and identify these 500,000 teachers in the public sector or even private sector, doesn't matter. Most of the private schools are ramshackle schools. And then give them free of cost this quality input for 3 or 4 days, so that these guys go back thinking that, look, Infosys recognized this, and they want to feel as good, and they've given us these inputs, and now let's use it. No, there will be that kind of inspiration. You can structure that. It's not really very costly. Some people have to give the time and energy and create a program. The third would be identify quality institutions that are doing a good job, good NGOs who understand what they're doing, which really have professional capabilities there. Right now, some agencies are coming up. The other day, I found one agency which is focusing only on the private urban schools, niche area. They believe that's an important thing. Like it or not, a large number of low middle class people actually go to these private institutions, and these schools are substandard. So how can you improve their quality? There's no point complaining and criticizing them. They are what they are. They want to improve because if nothing else, they will get good business if they improve. They'll get more children. But they don't know how to improve. So these institutions are now working very hard. Some of them actually global organizations are working very hard to help them improve their abilities. So identify some such niche agencies and support them so that you know where your money is going. So in some way, engagement, I suppose, is the key word. And there are many ways. I only mentioned 3 possible options, but there are, I'm sure, 30 options.
First one is regarding the hierarchy system of primary education in India, like Navodaya schools, good schools, and all those things. Can we, despite all these disadvantages and problems, can we bring out a common school of system where throughout the country we have same syllabus and at least primary school? And second question is, we see Bihar has given an example like people are more aware about the education system and like women education, and they brought back the CM to power. So is there any political opportunities or is there any fears among the political class? We also, Lok Satta party is trying to sincere parties like Lok Satta party. Do we have any political opportunities? Taking Bihar as an example, like it is ranked second among the literacy rate compared to all other states.
I lost your first question meanwhile.
First one is hierarchical system.
Okay.
Can we remove that?
Let me answer both. The first question answers an emphatic yes. Except for local history and language, they have to be obviously tailored to the geography or society in a very diverse country. Otherwise, it's ridiculous to have a state syllabus, then CBSE, ICSE, and all kinds of things. And in that respect, I think we should congratulate the Government of India. They are attempting the right thing. There are some hurdles, but in the next couple of years, there is a realistic chance if the states are sensible enough, that we will have one uniform curriculum and one examination. But there are a couple of difficulties. One is we have to translate these national texts. Obviously, you have to take the national curriculum and make it universal. You can't take a bit of each state's curriculum. So therefore, CBSE or something has to be adopted as a uniform standard. But you have to translate them into local languages in a very sensible manner. So it's a technical issue, but I'm sure some people are at it. The second is an examination to be conducted in various local languages. Right now, they dare to only conduct examinations in English and Hindi, unless you do it also in other languages, it not work. So these are technical issues. So I believe in the next few years we are moving in that direction, and it's definitely long overdue, I have no doubt. Similarly, competitive examinations for admission to higher courses in universities, there is a serious move afoot to have one common competitive examination. But you can compare apples for apples across the country. And all of us must do everything possible to break down the local resistance. So each state has its own vested interest. The local bureaucracies want to preserve their own turfs. So we have to raise our voice and make this kind of an aspiration realizable. And I believe in the next few years that will happen. And without that, I don't really see how we can begin to talk about a meaningful education system in the country. We don't even know what's happening in various states. To answer the second question, obviously education is an important thing for the people, but they have not yet seen education as an important political issue in this country. Even in Bihar, that's not the reason why Nitish Kumar was elected. In fact, between education and healthcare, the people's perception is health is far more important, because there's immediacy to health. Today, if the pain is not alleviated, if the suffering has not gone, the risk of death is not mitigated, the danger exists immediately, it's imminent. So in education, even you and I, we tend to think, all right, and I'll take care of the child next month, no big deal, and we can always overcome these deficiencies. It's normal human nature, because education by definition is a long-term thing. Election by definition is an ultra-short-term thing. So we have a problem there. So it's not becoming a political issue in this country, but we must do our best to make it a political issue. And two things for you to quickly grasp. Andhra Pradesh now ranks with Jharkhand as the lowest literate state in India. We are now below Bihar and Orissa. Below, of course, UP and Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, all those. Jharkhand is the only state now which is of saving grace. I want you to really understand this. There are many people who are very arrogant in this state who think that our education is good, we are great, we are world, but it's bull. We have third-rate education in this state. And what else I want to say? So that's it. So obviously we have to make it an important issue politically, but right now it is not. Unfortunately, many of us, I'm sure in our own ways, we are trying to make it different, and we have to make it different.
Days back, we were in a primary health center. Bought a couple of kilometers from here. We have a state that serves the labor industry, serves construction activity and the slums. Spent half a day there. We wanted to file an RTA on why the urban health center, they call it, because it's in the city. Why is it defunct, and we did an investigation of what's the material, and who is actually coming there, and what is staff. I went there and some of us were there. It's sort of despondency, because they had all sorts of medicines virtually expired in the last couple of weeks and months. A lot of medicine. There's an incubator, there are beds, all that stuff. So we call the media and they're finding an idea. And we also want to help we want to paint and bring it up. So the second important aspect in the country, the health care. And we also visited a lot of schools. So to one of the schools we went to, it's in Town District. My maternal aunt is the principal. And being the principal, on her head there is a TV and a computer. And I asked her, what are they doing there? She said, they're part of the Shiksha Abhiyan. The culture has sent it. I don't know what to do because we don't have power. So it's there. So I think it's an example in the miniature of what we can face today. Ineffective bureaucracy and uncommitted politicians. So how do you think we can converge bureaucracy and the political class together the same system? It's a big challenge.
Make your voice heard, because agony and angst all of us feel here must be given expression in a very vocal way. The politicians and bureaucrats must not be allowed to get away with things. I mean, many of my colleagues in government, most of them junior colleagues, when I talk to them, they deal with education for healthcare, they tell me, sir, we don't even have time to focus on what has to be done. All our time is about teachers' transfers and postings and service conditions and some Supreme Court case and some contempt of court petition. This is what administration has become. It's a disgrace. So unless people like you and I, who have the privilege to understand things better and who can spare a bit of time and energy, and who know where the country is headed, if you take a certain trajectory, if we don't holler and shame them into action, it's unlikely to take shape. Because for the politician now there is a certain business model at work. Spend a huge amount of money, somehow get into office. Once you're in office, the only thing that he does is the so-called saturation coverage of all these meaningless goodies which don't at all enhance their capabilities or eliminate poverty, but only perpetuate dependence. And yet give them something. Today's 2 rupees rice, today something else, today something else. All these day-to-day things, and give an illusion to people that something is being done. And at the end of the election, meanwhile, of course, because they have invested a lot of money, they expect returns in multiples by land grabbing, by whether somebody said very politically. Mine, land, sand. Sand is a very important thing, by the way. Sand quarrying in many constituencies. And of course, transfers and postings in police cases. And focus your attention exclusively on them and make money during those 5 years. In some elections, the election machinery comes into operation, just money and liquor, and hope that the people are in favor of that particular party. If you are riding that particular crest, you will be elected, otherwise you will not be. You are always fighting for the election 5 years later. This is the model. Therefore, normal politics has lost the capacity to discipline politicians. So unless all of us are willing to holler consistently, credibly, and pick up an issue or two and systematically pursue it, it's a very boring, relentless, dreary exercise. If you're willing to go through that, then slowly we'll find that flow. I'm optimistic because answers are available. And actually healthcare is easier to fix than education. Because if you design the right kind of model, that's what I've been fighting for with our success so far. I'm the author of the National Rural Health Mission. They accepted everything else I said, but not the competition and choice element. I wanted to bring in the accountability, erase the distinction between public and private. And once we have certain protocols, standard costs, and standard services, if the patient decides where she wants to go, she knows best. And the government hospitals, as well as the private ones, they get the money on the base of the billing, but the service is actually delivered. Then you change the whole discourse in public institutions. Accountability radically changes. There's no private, there's no public. There's a service to be delivered, the service will be rendered. But unfortunately, they're not building yet. And right now, until that comes, what is happening? In the name of your, Aragyashri program, they are willing to spend 4,000 rupees per day in special wards in these corporate hospitals. But in public hospitals, per patient, that is per bed, per inpatient, per day, the expenditure on drugs and food is 20 rupees. How do you expect these institutions to function? Let's assume every functionary is honest and decent and clean and nice guy. How can we function? The service we're doing to ourselves is unbelievable. But it can be changed because there are simple answers. Education is tougher because in case of a hospital, the people can vote with their feet instantly. In case of education, you can't take out your child from the school every day. It's a response only after some years. Therefore, normal competition and choice models don't work in education. We have to innovate a lot more. That's why all over the world they're finding it tougher to deal with education. Of course, in countries like the United States, which are sometimes very asinine, even healthcare they're finding it very tough. There are answers all over the world, but America doesn't want to find those answers or learn from them. So that's a special problem in that country. But education is a tougher challenge. Therefore, is there a hope? Yes, I believe so. Even technology. That particular teacher may be uninformed, they may not be faculty, electricity may not be there, it may be uninnovative. But some good things happening across the world. I'm sure some of you are familiar with khanacademy.org.
Yes.
How many of you are familiar? In this group, most of you must be familiar. This Khan is a subcontinental person, maybe India, maybe Bangladesh, I'm not too sure which. So he went to his MIT, I think, and after that he decided that he would devote much of his lifetime for school education all over the world. And he used this powerful technology that you have. Now Khan Academy is now making waves across the world. School education, you want to teach kids anywhere in the world, Khan Academy is now the source. You don't require teachers really. It's first rate from what I hear. But the challenge is that one thing you could do, supposing you take up the responsibility of translating that into Telugu. Getting permissions is not a problem. There has to be an open source thing and they're more than willing to permit. And for Telugu already I have a group, talk to them and they were at 10 permission, they're more than willing to give permission. But actually do a good job, convert that into Telugu. And then post it so that people can start recognizing it. So it becomes one very easy way to do something up your alley. So there are ways of doing it. I'm sure in the coming years, the opportunities to improve the quality of education, they are significantly greater than before. Technology has become more and more accessible, and the demand side is very strong. The good news is even the poorest Indians are willing to spend disproportionately large sums for their kids' education. Very poor people are willing to spend 900,000 rupees a month for 2 kids or so together. Sometimes in each kid 1,000 rupees, 900 rupees, you'll be amazed. I have seen many payment, the small shops, the payments we have, some funds. Some of these people, I keep asking them how many kids they have, how much they spend for the schools, etc. Some of the kids spend 1,000 rupees per month per kid for school. They will spend in the hope that they get better education. Even there, when they spend as much money as you and I do, still they are cheated because they don't have access to the decent schools. Not in the teach at home. Ultimately, good schools depend on parents also and giving that extra support. And that support is not forthcoming, it's very difficult for the child to pick up the steps. So the demand side is very strong. It's basically a supply side problem, and that can be addressed. Eventually, meanwhile, a generation of kids will suffer if we delay it for too long. Because demand is strong, supply side will be addressed. I'm confident.
Thank you, Vijay. I have 2 points. I have 2 points. One thing is, from your speech where you are saying currently government has imposed conditions on private organizations saying at least some X percentage of a sale has to be allocated. It's not the right way. Some of the alternative has to be given saying that the portion of the money has to be given for them where they will give a chance to opt their skills. But basically human nature, as the subconscious mind of any person will never allow him or her to go out of his his subconscious brain never allow take risk. The same thing what that we are always learning is a pain. So we have feel like going. So how do you justify that? And next thing is always till this point of time what I believe, education is all about emotional intelligence. It's all about emotional control. It could be a complex calculus or coordinate geometry what we have learned that will be used after completing of graduation. So do you think definitely we have to go with other ways of educating kids or graduates, or it is the right way but learn in different ways?
The first one, I'm not arguing against the disadvantaged kids getting a chance. I'm saying this is not going to happen. I don't see it happen this way. I don't see Hyderabad Public School or Vidyaranya School or some other very good school in the state or the country. I don't see them actually admitting poor kids and being able to treat them equally and then ensuring the outcomes are going to be uniformly good, irrespective of the socioeconomic status, because our structure is not geared towards that. And therefore, we have to think of more innovative mechanisms. I'm only suggesting one or two titles offhand. So it's not an argument against the philosophy, it's an argument against the practice of it. And I have learned long since that the impossible best is often aiming at the possible good. So we have to really achieve what is necessary. And the good thing is, once the kids are given a decent opportunity, while initially the better placed children may appear to be better, after 7, 8, 10 years of schooling, progressively the gap is narrowed. If you get a village kid with semi-literate, illiterate parents versus an urban kid with very well educated and rich background, at grade 1 or 2 or 3, you'll find a huge gap. But if you give a decent chance to the kids from the poor background, not necessarily the same institution, after 10 years you'll find that the gap is remarkably narrow. Intelligence cannot be ultimately suppressed if you give a reasonable chance. But by putting them there, making them feel inferior from day one in every which way, and these two are from different cultures, you are probably not doing this bright kid from poor backgrounds a great deal of service. So you have to look at it very deeply. That's the point I'm making. The second question you asked again, I missed it.
It's about education, emotional intelligence. Do we really have to all these syllabus?
Do we have to change the way education? No, I'm not a great fan of some dramatic and revolutionary changes in school education. The way you communicate, the way you evaluate, these things must change. That's why the Khan Academy and other things are very important. They impart knowledge and learning in a very intelligent and very sensitive way, not in a very crude way. But what ought to be imparted, I think there is more or less a global consensus. At school, you must have a basic understanding of math, logic and science, and language, and a bit of history and geography and citizenship, etc. These are all universally accepted principles. I don't think there's a great deal of revolutionary change that is possible in the content of it. But the way it is taught, obviously, the quality of textbooks, the way the teaching is structured, the evaluation is done, the laboratory work where it's feasible, and the community interaction where it's possible. So all kinds of things can be done. But content part, I don't know if there's some dramatic change is possible. There are some people who argue that everything must be thrown out, you must change. But I'm not a great believer in tearing up everything you have and then starting everything afresh. Things don't work like that. I think we're not doing a bad job in terms of content across the world. But the way it's imparted, definitely we have to do a lot better. After this, no doubt.
Before I joined Infosys, I had 5 months of time, and then I worked as a jail in one of the residential junior colleges. I had a colleague who knew literally nothing. He couldn't impart anything to the students, whom students used to fool around him. And he completed his BEd and he got selected as a government teacher. There is only an examination to test him, and they are looking into his records that he got written by somebody else. But there is nothing like an interview where really tests his teaching skills, how he is going to impart that. I think there should be, in my opinion, there should be some mechanism which will test actually how good he is at imparting whatever knowledge he has to the students. That's one point. And the second thing is, when you have a lot of money flowing out in this technical world, and why would somebody who is very good at teaching or who has good knowledge would stay in teaching field, and there are no substantial salaries in the education field?
Actually, both questions are linked. In some ways, one answers the other. First of all, the salaries question. The government teachers are no longer paid bad salaries. So, first, you must get rid of these myths. The university teachers' salary these days? Do you have an idea? They're paid fabulously. And for the work they do, they're paid outrageously. So there is a case for higher salaries, there's no question. But right now, they're not bad. What the government is doing is, by a skullduggery, because they cannot pay everybody overnight, they're taking them as para teachers for a year or two, they'll be paid some 3,000, 4,000, then they become regular teachers, then they start getting 10, 12, 15,000, etc. But the wages are not an issue. In fact, government wages are typically much, much higher than the private sector teaching wages, in 95% cases. In particularly good private schools, and I'm talking about the top of the line, in all the country maybe you have about thousands of schools, there the wages in private sector are higher than those in government. But barring those 1,000 schools, school for school, the private sector wages are way below the government wages. So wages are not an issue. Second, the problem is precisely this. Even those 10, 15,000, 20,000 rupees wages are not really good enough for a good teacher. See, if you want to imagine a teacher who will shape your child's future, you will demand very high qualities, right? Now such a fellow will be paid pretty well by Infosys. The person you and I who have in mind to be a good teacher would be definitely well qualified to be in a corporate job, I think probably in a much better environment without this politicization and this sweltering heat and dust and no facilities and the poorest of the kids to be taught. Therefore, much of the fun is lost because even when you see their day-to-day deprivations, it's such a painful thing. It's unlikely that that child will be attracted. Therefore, testing is not the issue. How to select is not the challenge. You could have any number of selections, where are the people to be selected? Therefore, improve the supply side. That's what I'm arguing. Because there is good demand for education, if we help them become better teachers, maybe if there are 10-15% who are totally unsuited to teaching, we can throw them out. That's not a big issue. But I'm assuming that 70-80%, if you empower them, if you make them better teachers, they're willing to do a better job. Everybody is not a deliberate laggard, everybody is not a scoundrel. Give them a chance, for our own sake, for our kids' sake. And that chance is not being given, we're not focusing on that. And we're talking about a mega problem. If one school, you can look at one teacher, how to improve, how to get a good teacher. When you look at millions of teachers required in the country, you don't have that luxury. In fact, the greatest challenge of India, to my mind, is lack of qualified manpower, skilled manpower. We're talking about not just technical.